Many of you have been asking me how you should be really doing your season talents, as it is obviously something that you have a lot of choice in. And while there is a few really important things that you really must do and not mess up for max value, in general, a lot of these are kind of useless. So today I'm going to give you a full guide on exactly what you should be doing to get the max value out of the entire season. Hey everyone, I'm Zaraz from Not Casuals, and we're going to go right into it. There's a few things you need to know about the season talents. The first one is that you will be able to respec only once really this season, because the cooldown is 40 days, meaning that you will be playing with whatever you have right now until a few weeks in. When war starts, you then reset and respec into a more PvP war focused talents, as some of these stuff like that give prestige and CP won't be needed as much, because by then you'll have maxed out a lot of the things that you need. Now, the other thing to note is that there is a total of 21 talent points that can be earned through here, and most of them are very easy to get, but these three are going to be quite a lot harder for most people to get. Most people will be able to get the top 300, but then the last 2 points will be really hard. So I am kind of estimating that the majority of people are going to be at around 18 or 19 points, as this personal glory system is basically like the merit, but only counting enemies that are not in your affiliated region, so not the same starting zone as you. So you won't be able to merit farm with people from your same alliance and stuff like that. You will be able to do with other people if you organize from other affiliated regions, and you can merit farm and do stuff like that, but it's going to be harder because you don't really have access to each other for quite a while before you get into the later zones. So this is going to be something that is more relevant, as merit can be done in so many ways with your own farm account and stuff like that, and this will be something you will be able to really just do well on if you kill T4s and T5s, as T3, 2, 1 and farmers and stuff really don't give you anything at all. So this is going to be an interesting system. Now, top 300 is still going to be challenging for most, but T5 players should be able to get in there quickly. The only thing we don't know is if you reach top 300, for example, and then an hour later someone pushes you away, do you still keep it? Do you get to claim it? Or is it like once a week, once a day? I don't exactly know when this is taken into account. My guess is that if you appear on the top 300, you can claim it instantly. So someone who gets on the top 300 or top 100 then can stop farming the merit, whatever, and then other players can take their place and unlock them. We'll have to see how it works. Obviously, leadership is going to have to deal with that in your alliances respectively. But in any case, you can do most of what you need with only 18 or 19 points. So this is what I'm going to go into first. Now, here is an image that shows kind of my optimal 19 points route for PvE and the order in which I would go into that. So as you can see, number 1 and number 2 are quite obvious on the right side, and then the range assault is what you would max first. The reason being that in PvE, behemoth are still going to be important. So of course, this will have a little bit of difference depending on the kind of units that you are using. For example, if you're an archer or a mage main, you will obviously go range assault, but the tanks are going to go in the battlefield domination on the left. Things will change slightly. This is really just an idea. This is what I would recommend for most like free-to-play, medium spender, mages and archers. Now going back here, this is obvious. 10% prestige. Prestige is needed for policies. There's a lot of really good policies, exceptionally powerful policies that give you a lot of stats for different troops. You will need as much prestige as you can get in a season, so this is really going to make it. Now, in second, I would do the CP recovery speed by 10. And the reason behind that is that basically you are going to get more CP per hour, meaning you can kill more Darklings, meaning you get more prestige, more experience for your heroes. Again, it all boils down to really how much prestige you can get. This is going to give it to you. So in my opinion, this is the two first you should be getting, because you're going to be getting more prestige and more CP from the right at the beginning of the season. Now, next, as I said, range assault is going to be the choice for most people, for behemoths and for just PvE in regular. There's nothing else to do really at the beginning. March speed, obviously going to be very important for behemoths avoiding stuff. It is something that will just save a lot of trouble in your life, and 5% is a really good thing. 1.5 here is not good, not bad, but it's just, it's very low. And then here is going to be pretty obvious. Normal damage in the field versus giving your ranged legions attack by 1.5% is obviously, in my opinion, a bit better. Normal attack only applies to a few marches, usually archers. If you're using 3 archer marches, maybe, but there's not really that many good heroes to do 3 archers in the first place. But in any case, I think this is better. It's not a huge deal if you do this one. Like, I wouldn't respect for it, but it's just 3% normal damage is just very low. as opposed to this, which gives attack to ranged legions, which also include mages. Now here is obviously where it gets interesting. A lot of people have been talking about long range warfare and saying it's OP and all that kind of stuff, but while it is very strong and it will change the way the game is played because archers will be able to snipe off mages from afar, with the comparison, it is also not that amazing. Like, archers do lose a lot of damage and they become similar, a little bit better, but similar to like celestials at T5, for example, where the celestials also get a lot of attack. So you become like a stronger long range arch, but you have no AoE like mages, and artifacts range for archers don't work from afar, so you're gonna have to walk into close range to cast your artifacts in the first place. So in my opinion, this is going to be really good for war for some players, but currently when we're talking about PvE behemoths, this is obviously terrible because archers can already do a good job without the range. So if you're going to be playing behemoths and stuff, I really wouldn't recommend doing long range warfare at all right now. Obviously I would go for arcane torrent, even though it won't help you as archers against behemoth. This will nerf you too much, so I really wouldn't get that. And this is what I am going to get personally, because I also am a mage main, which makes sense. But really just be careful if you're going to be in the behemoth team, going for frames and stuff like that. Do not pick that up or you will really hurt yourself. Also, good to note that the suppressive fire thing isn't also really useful for PvE in general. You don't really have to get this. Now, I would like to get this because for Darklings and stuff like that, you know, behemoth is not my #1 priority as a T4 player, but also there really isn't a lot of other stuff that boosts you behemoth wise. But you can make the choice not to get these at all if your focus is behemoth in the early season, and go for more points somewhere else if you'd like. But really, I'm getting this in general because it's going to be nice for all my mage march and my archer marches when I'm attacking Darklings, slowing them. You know, will have some utility as well for merit trading, and when we do the runes and stuff, this would be useful. Maxing out your ranged assault tree is great because it is going to boost a lot of your marches that are doing your DPS. And this is why I'm going there. But again, as I said, if you're going to be respecing in the middle of the season, this is not something you should be really focusing on, as the last 2 buffs here for marksmen don't apply for behemoth, so this is not as important. Now, the other buffs that are important is going to be in battlefield domination. Obviously, the stamina recovery is going to be a must for almost all players that are T5 in this game. But in PvE, this doesn't do anything for you, so you could do this if you know for sure you're going to respec for PvP. But this is really just 1% damage, so it's quite low. You get the choice here, but really this is like the safest bet, as obviously this is what allows you to fight a lot longer when there is any kind of PvP action. Now this is where it's really good to get the battlefield elimination. So here your legions are going to gain a 2.5 attack % damage buff, and it is obviously very good. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this. It's actually one of the best buffs you can get in all the trees currently that is passive. So this is why I would recommend at least going here. So then your tree would look like a pretty standard tree. It would be, I think, 16 points by now. And that is also why I recommend getting this daily warren capacity for your pets, because at the beginning, we're not going to be doing any war. So getting more pets is obviously very, very beneficial, as it's so hard to get any good pets in this game. And this is why this is here. So in here, it would be a tree that is 19 points, where you get this, this, and this, all PvE related stuff. Then you get your full range assault tree to make your marches better in general for all the content you're doing. Just be careful if you're doing behemoth. There's a few things that you have to take in account. And then you get here and here for 3.5% damage attack basically, or you can get the stamina and the 2.5 here. It doesn't matter as much. It's really just, you know, this obviously won't even work until you gain merit anyway. So that's why I'm not such a big fan of this one for the beginning. And then later on in the game, you will not be using it because you need the stamina. So this is what it would look like at 19 points, which most people should be able to achieve. Now, I did say that obviously this is not needed for PvE, as obviously march speed and rage accumulation speed doesn't work on behemoths. So if you're not fighting behemoths, this is not as valuable. And if you're not taking these, it's frees 4 points for you. So you could technically take this, but also has absolutely no value, as it's all about gathering. And if you're not doing war, you're not really getting attacked by gatherers. So this is where you get these points to do kind of what you want. You can put the points here instead, which will allow you to have, you know, cavalry troops or infantry. Those are very good, but if you're not using those troop types, which most people aren't, they don't have a lot of value for you. And otherwise, you can go in the engineering mastery, which is going to be, you know, interesting. I find this entire tree so bad actually, because the turret shield is fine. Sure, you have more HP when you build them. It only applies once. When it gets attacked and dies, well, it's gone. This is absolutely useless. Don't get this. Even with 100% boost, range units don't even come close to having as much engineering as infantry, so you shouldn't really be using this. It can be useful, but really it shouldn't be. Like, it just shouldn't be. And then this turrets take less time to build. Sure, can be good for war. In my opinion, this is much better, making it so when you're refreshing, it's way faster for you to refresh when your units die. So this is really, really good. But again, this is all things that are going to apply only in PvP. So that's why I don't know where else you would really put the points, which is why I'm maxing out range assault. Here, again, turrets are higher level. This is going to be good. Your turrets are going to be stronger. Otherwise, you can do Alliance Keep. This is going to be very good for some players, but it's really deep in this tree to get that. And there's just so much better stuff to get for war. And this is really one of the best things that exists in here. And there is a way that maybe this would be good for PvE, let's say at the beginning of the game. But most behemoths have things that make it so they can't be affected by debuffs like this. So in general, this is also going to be useless for PvE. And then for PvP, it's just not worth putting 10 points here. You might as well just putting 10 points here and 10 points here, in my opinion. So I really just think this engineering mastery tree is the worst one, and you should really just not choose anything in there unless you're like a builder, which isn't fighting, and then you build turrets, and your whole goal, let's say you have a farming alliance that is just there to build turrets, well, you'll have the members in there take this. Otherwise, this is something I wouldn't touch in general. So this is, again, the recommendation I would do for PvE. Again, you can do a few tweaks, and it's not the end of the world if you mess up something, because you're going to respec once for war at some point. So just obviously take this with a grain of salt. Take it depending on the troop build that you're doing. If you're a main cav, a main inf, obviously you'll change things around. If you're an archer, you won't be taking long range warfare for now. If you're mage, then it's quite easy. It's quite straightforward. So it's really just important that you remember to take the prestige and the CP and the pet, really, because those are all the really only really meaningful PvE buffs. As well as, for example, this one, which is going to be 2.5 attack. That is very easy to get. You only need 3 points to get here. And then the rest, obviously, in your tree, respectively, of your troop. The rest, it doesn't really matter, whatever you do with the rest of the points. Now, once you go into war and you full respec, this is what I would estimate it should look like. For example, as a mage or marksman main, T4 or T5, this is how I would put the points. Now, obviously, the order doesn't matter because you're going to have all the points by the time you respec. And again, this is going to take battlefield domination. Ignore the last 2 talents because you're not infantry or cavs. Infantry or cav players would potentially think about getting the full battlefield domination and the full range assault for 20 points if you have the 20 points, and ignore everything else on the battle preparation. Now here, you're going to have a little bit of a say depending on what your account looks like. So of course, the movement speed is also amazing here. And this, in my opinion, is also going to be the beneficial one. Now here is where marksmen are going to do long range warfare if you are going to and you want to. Otherwise, you can still do counterattack march without it and just boost your mage marches. This is something you get to decide entirely. I do think long range warfare is going to be good, but I also do think that this is an amazing buff for mages. If you're using 2 mage marches or more and they are awakened, I really would reconsider taking range warfare as opposed to this. This is 10% damage is really good, but also a lot of rage per second. You really just get to choose here what you decide is best for your account. I personally will be taking this. I have 2-3 mage marches and 1 archer march, so it's obviously easy for me. People who are running 2 or 3 archer marches obviously are going to be looking at this, but counterattack marches don't benefit from this. So Canara Host types of marches don't love this as much. And it is just not going to be something that every player wants to do, because the more players take this, the more AoE mages have a field day, because people are going to be clumped up at max range all over each other, mages and archers in a big ball all the time, as opposed to before where archers were in front and mages were in the back. So they will not always get all AoE together. Now, for 100% sure, I cannot wait to see everyone clumped up in one ball, mages, archers, and then send my 3 mage march, AoE that, and get insane value, and then pull out before they attack me or target me. So, you know, I am optimistic. I do not think this is as good as people think. I actually think it's quite a bit worse than people think, but I also don't think it's going to be bad. It's not a net negative for your account. It will still give you, in the end, probably more merit, because you're going to be able to target a lot of mage marches from afar, and people who don't back up instantly will suffer. But most people who play this game well will be backing up when they get targeted, so your archers are not going to do as much value, as opposed to mages when they target a march. Even if you back up, if they get their rage kill off and then they back off, they do damage to everybody and get so much of their value. as opposed to an archer. If someone starts backing up when you attack them, even if you get your rage kill, you're only targeting one march, so you're not getting as much value in my opinion. It really just will be good if people don't back up when you target them and are kind of AFK, or massive wars where, you know, people are just attacking left and right and people are just tanking the damage. It will work there for sure, but anyways, you will have to make the decision yourself because we can't see it yet. We will get some tests done when we see the talent unlocked and people take it and show it in the battlefield. Now next, obviously this now becomes amazing, as slowing enemies and reducing their rage accumulation is insane. It's a very strong debuff and very powerful for you. And of course, you're gonna have multiple marches and you're gonna make this max stack at 10% quite quickly and 5% here. So it's gonna be good. It's not so massive of a buff. It's a decent buff, but it's not so massive. It doesn't give you more damage. So some people could argue that it could be skipped, as only a few people in the army really need to have that, and they will be applying it to anyone they target. But you know, in any case, as I said, there's really not a lot of other good stuff here. So this, in my opinion, is pretty good. And as you've maxed out your range assault, then you would obviously consider doing most likely this, as obviously stamina is insane in war, and then this as the 2.5% boost. You can ignore the rest if you don't have calves or infantry as your main, and then you would go into battle preparation. Still, this is going to be, I think, something you keep all season because the alternative is not that great and you will need a lot of prestige the whole season no matter what. Now here, obviously, the CPU recovery loses a little bit of its benefits because first, you are fighting war, you're not really farming CP anymore, and this is going to be something that gives you extra 100,000 merits per week. Now for some wells, they make tens of millions of merits per week, per month, let's say. So this is really not a big deal, but it is going to be free and a bit of value, as there is the alternative is CP. So my personal experience in war is that my troops are usually too dead to do a lot of darklings for the last 2 weeks of the war. So this doesn't have as much value for me, and this has value. So this is where I would recommend you probably take this as opposed to this. But again, there is really no bad choice here because this will give you some extra merit. But if you're fighting in war, you're going to be able to empty the shop regularly no matter what. So the value here is really not as optimal. It's still good. Just at the end of the season, let's say there are 4 weeks of war, well, it's 400,000 merit. Some people make that in one rally. So, you know, it is a small buff. If the cap wasn't there, it would be better, but it's not. So now next here, obviously the daily warrant becomes useless as it has nothing to do with PvP, as opposed to this, which increases your resource healing or your savings. It reduces it by 10%. So you are going to save a lot of resource if you resource heal. So it is really hard to not take this if you are using that. But anyone who's willing also can just use their credit card and not need that at all. So the 3 points here are valuable for sure in war, and that's why I would recommend taking them, which makes it so that your tree is not complete. You have 10 points here, 3 points here, and 6 points here. That makes it 19. That is kind of the best you can do if you are a medium fighting player where you don't have the top 100 or the top 20. If you did get the 2 extra points, there really isn't anywhere you could put them, which is why you could, let's say, go here and get this and this for the for 3 extra point. So you'd have to basically sacrifice this one. So here it becomes where you're gonna have some choice. Like, this is completely optimal for your account. It has nothing to do. You could also keep this one the whole season because pets are important, and ignore this completely. As I said, you could skip this one because not everybody needs it, as I said, and then instead go and get this and this, or come here and do this and this, cancel this one and cancel this one. And this is kind of like what I expect a lot of wells are going to end up doing. They're going to put, let's say, 10 points here, or even 6 points here, and then 10 points here by getting the infantry stuff for the Goresh Skogul marches, and then getting this, which is absolutely amazing for the Goresh Skogul march or the Madeline marches. So this is something that if you are very strong T5 that has all these heroes maxed out, I would not do this tree. Like, instead of this, you can also get this if you're using cavalry a lot. I don't think you should. This is better in my opinion. But here and here are two very, very amazing things for infantry, for Goresh Skogul, counterattack, even for rallies. So this is something to take in mind. As well as I said, this is not needed for everybody, but if you're going to be rallying, well, this is going to become more needed, because applying this debuff in a rally versus a city or another rally will have a lot of value, and you're not going to be able to apply it from other things, because obviously when you're rallying a target, people are not swarming it most of the time. So if I was a very, very powerful well, I would just get 10 points here and 10 points here. and then the 1 point would be here. That would be my personal opinion. As a massive well, you can buy, you can get as much merit as you want by paying money and buying more troops if you need them. You don't need this at all. This is complete garbage. And as I said, nothing here is great. You could make the argument to come here, but I mean, again, this is much better in my opinion, and so is this. So I wouldn't go and spend the 6 points to come here. Some might, if you're not interested at all in here, you could do 6 points here, 10 points here, 3 points here, and then you're pretty good. But you're missing out, on some of this stuff here. So this is where I'm saying there really isn't like a wrong or good way of doing things. You really just need to make sure you maxed out your tree the way you need for your troops. Range assault is going to be the most optimal for most players. And as I said, some of the buffs here are really too good not to get. And then this 2.5% attack for all your troops is also very, very massive. The rest is really not as important. Like, you can really do whatever you want. You want to be garrisoning Alliance Keep all season, sure, have fun with that. You want to have your pet warrant, or you want to save resources, then sure, that's really important. So really, this is going to be your decision to make. Just make sure that you are taking the right things for you and you don't mess up taking some of the things that are important. Like, if you respect long range warfare and you don't like it, well, it's too late. You can't respect another time. So you'll have to make sure you're taking the decision properly. So here, just showing you again, this is what I'm going to most likely be doing as a mage main who is going to be obviously, not spending millions of dollars on this game. So I'm going to try and play this as conservatively as possible and have the little bit extra merit, extra resource healing. I might keep the pet. I don't know. It's one of those decisions. I'm not sure between the resource healing and the pet, because obviously pets are also very important in this game. But other than that, this is what it's going to look like for me as a mage main who is going to be T5 eventually this season, hopefully. So make sure to watch out for that video when it does come. Let me know if you have any comments or suggestion, if you think some different talents are better, or if you are going to do a different tree. As I said, every player is going to do whatever their account is built for. It's going to be different from one to the other. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.